Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and I'm going to be looking at a game from the 2007 World Chess Cup in Russia between Teimour Radjabov as white versus Bartlomiej Macieja, playing black. So Radjabov is typically a d4 player, and knight f3, the idea is to avoid some of the mainline Nimzo-Indian stuff that can arise after knight c3. So d5, pretty standard response by Macieja with black. Just, you got to challenge white for the center and control the e4 square. And so g3, so going into a kind of a fianchetto type structure for Radjabov, and bishop b4. So Macieja plays an interesting line with bishop b4. There's so many other lines here, it's not even worth talking about them, but bishop b4 is so kind of going into kind of an Nimzo-Indian style line, and now d takes c4. So I like the setup here that Macieja plays with black because it's a little bit different. And after queen a4, he really plays an interesting idea with a5, a3, and now knight b6. So he's trying to hold on to the pawn on c4, and he's also trying to make white, trying to exploit the fact the queen came out maybe a little too early. So black is trying to hold on to this pawn on c4, although it's extremely weak. In exchange, white has a great pawn center and very, very good coordination with all of his pieces. So white's definitely got compensation for the pawn. Bishop d7. h6, okay, I don't know if it was totally forced, but I guess he was getting nervous about some knight g5 ideas. Knight g5 with e5, so he played h6, makes sense. And so knight e5. So it looks like white's probably going to get his pawn back, but queen e8. A very sneaky plan by Macieja is going to allow him to hold on to the c4 pawn. So now f4, and bishop to a4 was his idea. So now, in the game, Radjabov played queen to e2. But what if he had played knight takes a4? What I was looking at was quite interesting. Knight takes a4, knight takes c4. And it seems like white is going to hold. But now b5, kicking the knight back to d2. So it could, if knight takes b2, rook over. And this is, nothing's going on for black here. I mean, he's actually pretty worse, because white has the two bishops. So I stopped looking for a second, but then I was like, wait a second. And knight g4, black is going to win a pawn and maybe then some. I mean, bishop to f2, then knight takes b2, and all of a sudden, black is playing too quickly with this knight g4 idea. White's too clogged up, and he's got a problem with the bishop. So black would be significantly better here, also eyeing the weakness on a3. So that's why Macieja's idea worked with bishop to a4. So really a sneaky idea with playing a5, taking the pawn on c4. Really an interesting idea in this kind of weird Indian where white's got the kingside fianchetto. And so now bishop to b3. So black has locked the bishop in b3. It was kind of getting cramped in the black position, and now he didn't trade the bishop, but he got it out, and it's also anchoring the pawn on c4. So now f5 and rook a6, a very nice move by black, because this rook, while it looks kind of weird right now, the rook is going to protect black's position excellently along the 6th rank. Knight g4 is a nice natural attacking move by Radjabov, and starting to get some threats materializing. So quickly, Macieja he takes the pawn and he clears the 6th rank with knight d7. Also, knight d7 is going to open black's position. Maybe he can reroute the rook, play c6 and b5, and storm the pawns on the queen side. e5 by white. So white's still only down one pawn, and he's got an open f-file, and he's got the e4 square for maneuvering. So he's definitely got a dangerous attack. Rook g6, a nice move, and now c6. Stopping the white pawns and preparing to play b5. Knight e4, and now Macieja is too sneaky. He plays c3. So it looked like the bishop was totally out of the game on b3, but it was actually kind of pinning down white's knight, because now white's going to lose an exchange. c3, I mean, he doesn't have to lose an exchange here. By all means, I mean, he could play something like Queen F2. But then black is either going to have a choice of taking or playing C2. Something like that. I mean, it's... Either way, I mean, this is not what white wants. He doesn't want the queen side open. By taking the pawn here, now the A3 pawn is going to be super weak as well. So definitely not what white was hoping for. Not to mention bishop E6 could win an exchange. It's going to be very good for black. So instead, after C3, Radjabov just plays knight takes, bishop C4. So he gives up the exchange. And now queen H5. So white still has a pretty scary position, but black is up a clean exchange. So now C5. So nice move. Macieja was really ready to break open, especially with his queen. So C5 kind of starting that. And so now Radjabov tries to maneuver his knight into the attack. Knight E6, a good move. Notice how all of black's pieces are just consolidated around his king. They're not super active, but he's up a clean exchange. Actually, white has an extra pawn for it. He's got the two bishops. White's got compensation, but black is up in exchange. Knight F5, couple exchanges, and now black's pieces finally come to life with queen B5. So an excellent little 2 or 3 move series of checks by black. And now rook to D8, he can finally counterattack, and he controls a couple open files. So queen H4, Radjabov, he doesn't, he's got to be careful. Queen E2, and maybe he's going to be in some serious problems. It looks like maybe he can get out of this with here, but bishop F3, but still, black would be winning. So instead, he tries queen H4 and continuing the attack, which really is the only practical chance. Rook D2, F5, and now after E6, it looks like Radjabov is making serious progress, but rook takes G2, a very nice tactic by black. That's it. So the idea is that, first of all, king takes, queen E2 check because of this pin, king H1, and now rook takes. And there's going to be, due to the undefended rook on F1, there's going to be some kind of mate coming up. Say something like this. Either way, black's going to win a lot of material. Rook takes G2, and any kind of checks here, just king F8, no worries. So after rook takes G2, white resign because Radjabov with white resign. A fantastic victory by Macieja. Some interesting opening preparation, really interesting maneuvers. Stuff you don't really see a lot. The bishop A4, bishop B3 stuff. So this is Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.